Hello. Um, it has been a few weeks since I finished reading Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice, and I wanted to read this because if left to my own devices, I will read nonfiction every single time, probably a memoir or a biography. And I have really been pushing myself to get out of my reading comfort zone and try to find some good fiction. And there were a couple books in particular that were recommended to me. Um, I really wanted to find specifically like life changing, great, unforgettable fiction. And this was one of the books that was recommended to me by several people. And I did some digging around on Goodreads. The consensus seems to be that it was deep. It would be a deep and profound book with a lot of incredible insights. This, as the kids say, was kind of just a big nothing burger. Like, we have three vampires that we're following, sort of. I mean, there's the protagonist, Lewis. Maybe his name is pronounced Louis, but I'm gonna call him Lewis. And he seems to be the only vampire with a conscience, with a very strong sense of morality. And he becomes a vampire and is feeling a lot of angst about how he's forced to kill people, and he feels bad about that. And because vampires have immortality, he is going about his life as a vampire really trying to find purpose and meaning and how to reconcile this existence where he's forced to kill people. And I wouldn't say that this is a book that really will grab you, especially in this newer generation of reading. I feel like, I'm pretty sure this book was written in the 70s, and the style was much more descriptive back then. You get a lot more scenes of nature and how the light reflected in the water on the street and how the leaves looked in the fall and the moon and the this and the that. And I want the meat and potatoes, okay? I want the plot. I don't need the details. I want to find out what happens to our guy Lewis. Because his experience as a vampire mirrors very closely to what we experience as people. You know, so many of us, if not all of us, want to figure out what is the meaning of my life. What is a life that has purpose and fulfillment? And so I wouldn't say that this is a particularly riveting story, but for the sake of his internal journey, I really, out of curiosity, wanted to find out, like, what is, like, how can a vampire, somebody who is going to live forever, how do they make peace with their eternal life? And I was kind of, it's like dangling the carrot, you know, you sort of get bits and pieces of God and meaning and, you know, a little bit of internal dialogue and conversation of a divine nature, but it just doesn't really go anywhere. And at the end of the book, it just seems like he kind of accepts his nature, and that's it. There is no deeper meaning or purpose to his life beyond just killing human beings forever and ever. And it just falls flat. There's no real, I mean, he goes on this huge journey across the world. Like, he's in different countries, he's moving around, he's trying to find answers. And we as the reader, I as the reader, was waiting like, yeah, I want to find out what's going to be at the end of this big journey. And there was no big revelation, unfortunately. We kind of are just left with nothing. And I found that hugely disappointing. I will say that I've never been more grateful for the concept of death in my own life, because the idea of living forever and having to experience what Lewis is experiencing, this daily agony, I'm glad that I won't. If given the choice between death and living forever, I'm definitely now grateful after reading this book to have death as an option, as not an option, as an inevitable reality, because it just seems like a very empty life. And I don't know, I wanted more, Anne Rice. Like, what, there is no meaning or purpose or anything. He's just kind of stuck in this life as a vampire, and there's no real solace, there's no joy. He just kind of, he's sort of at the end of the book just numbs out, and instead of this intense, overwhelming pain that he constantly feels, it's just replaced by an apathy. And like, we went on this big journey for nothing. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. So, I mean, I really don't know what to say, other than I was very bored and disappointed that it just didn't really go anywhere. So, and as far as the characters, we have Lestat and we have Claudia. And I have seen people give very positive reviews of loving those characters. I didn't feel anything for Lestat or Claudia. I found Claudia to be kind of a nuisance. I found her creepy, and I kind of just wanted her to go away. Like, her presence was very uncomfortable to me. And Lestat was kind of just empty. Like, he didn't bring anything to the story, the relationship dynamics. He was just sort of there. I'm sure there's more that he brings to the table in future books, because I know there's a story. Like, I think maybe the next book is his story, The Vampire Lestat. I'm not gonna read that, so I don't know. But I kind of just didn't really care. Like, Lewis wasn't a particularly interesting vampire. He was constantly forlorn. He was like the Eeyore of this whole cast of vampires, just so downtrodden constantly. Nothing made him happy. He wasn't happy when they brought Claudia into their group. He wasn't happy when he finally found love. This man just can't be happy. At least not as a vampire. Maybe as a human. I don't know. Maybe he would have been unhappy as a human also. But yeah, I didn't find there to be much depth or much of anything in this book. So this was a huge letdown, I'm sorry to report. And the other book that I was recommended for great life-changing fiction was Lord of the Rings, so I will be diving into that, because it just seems like that is one book that everybody seems to universally love and adore. So I feel like as a reader, you kind of have to read that one at some point. But yeah, I can't say I would recommend this unless you're the type of reader who can appreciate long, drawn out details and maybe relationship dynamics. Other than that, this, I mean, I would really like to dive into more vampire stories. I just don't really know where to go from here because this didn't satisfy any of my cravings for good vampire stories or good fiction. So unfortunately, this is a 2-star read for me. But if you have any thoughts or recommendations, please let me know. And I'll see you in the next review.